Rumors have it that some people in the ADC coalition party are quietly working against the candidacy of Peter Obi. At first, it sounded like routine political noise. The kind that appears, trends for a moment, and fades away. But this one did not fade. It stayed. It spread. And now, it is raising serious questions within the African Democratic Congress. Attention is now turning toward allies of Atiku Abubakar. Quiet discussions, behind-the-scenes alignments, and strategic positioning are being closely watched by party members and observers. Then came a moment that shifted the tone completely. During a program on Channels TV, Kenneth Okonkwo made a statement that added weight to the concerns. He said that if Peter Obi does not secure the ADC presidential ticket and chooses to leave the party, it would suggest compromise and indirect alignment with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That statement has since triggered intense debate. Because this is no longer just about party competition. It is now about credibility, fairness, and internal trust. At the center of the tension is the issue of zoning. In Nigeria's political tradition, power is often rotated between the north and the south to maintain balance and national stability. With President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, a southerner, currently in office and approaching a possible second-term contest, many believe the presidency remains within the southern cycle. Even in a scenario where the incumbent loses, the expectation among many stakeholders is that the south should complete its turn before power shifts back to the north. This is where the concern becomes sharper. Peter Obi, being from the south, is widely seen as fitting into that expectation. However, emerging signals within the party suggest that zoning may not be strictly followed. This has led to growing suspicion that internal mechanisms, especially the primaries, could be influenced in a way that changes the expected outcome. For many observers, the issue is clear. If zoning is set aside, and if internal processes are shaped by powerful interests, then the credibility of the party could be tested very early. And that is why this situation is no longer being treated as mere speculation. The focus is now shifting from speculation to structure, as attention turns to how the internal process of the African Democratic Congress could shape the final outcome. At the center of the concern is the party's primary election system. This is where candidates are expected to compete fairly, present their vision, and earn the support of delegates. But in Nigeria's political environment, primaries are often more than just a contest of ideas. They are influenced by networks, alliances, and long-standing political relationships. For many observers, this is where the real battle may take place. There is growing concern that the process could be structured in a way that limits the chances of Peter Obi, despite his visible popularity among voters. The concern is not about open confrontation, but about quiet decisions that happen within the system itself. These decisions may involve delegate selection, voting procedures, and internal rules that are not always visible to the public. Within political circles, such mechanisms are often seen as decisive. Supporters of Obi argue that his approach to politics does not align with traditional methods that rely heavily on financial influence and transactional agreements. His campaign style has been built more on public engagement, policy discussions, and grassroots appeal, especially among younger voters. However, this approach may not carry the same weight within internal party structures. Delegates, who play a key role in primaries, are often influenced by party leaders, regional blocs, and established political figures. This creates a system where popularity with the general public does not always translate into success within the party. On the other hand, allies of Atiku Abubakar are believed to have strong connections within these structures. Their experience, reach, and long-term presence in national politics may provide an advantage when it comes to internal negotiations and influence. This contrast is becoming a major point of discussion. It raises a critical question about what truly determines success in the primaries. Is it public support, or is it internal alignment? For many party members, the concern is not just about who wins, but how the process is conducted. If the system appears to favor one side through indirect means, it could create divisions within the party. This is particularly important at a time when the ADC is being seen as a possible alternative platform ahead of the 2027 elections. Public expectations are already high. Many Nigerians are looking for a political structure that operates differently from the traditional parties. They are watching closely to see whether the ADC can maintain transparency and fairness in its internal processes. Another key issue is the question of zoning, which continues to shape the conversation. As discussions around the primaries continue, there are indications that some stakeholders may prefer an open contest without strict adherence to regional rotation. This position is being interpreted by others as a move that could benefit northern candidates, including Atiku. For those who support zoning, this raises concerns about balance and equity. They argue that maintaining rotation is important for national unity and political stability. Ignoring it, they say, could send the wrong signal and weaken trust within the party. At the same time, others believe that competence and electability should be the main criteria, regardless of region. This difference in perspective is adding another layer of complexity to the situation. Within the party, discussions are becoming more intense, as different groups push for their preferred approach. Some are calling for clear guidelines to ensure fairness, while others are focusing on building alliances ahead of the primaries. The role of influential figures within the party is also under scrutiny. Their endorsements, decisions, and level of involvement could significantly shape the direction of the process. In many cases, such influence operates quietly but has a strong impact on outcomes. As a result, there is increasing demand for transparency. Observers are calling for a process that is open, credible, and free from manipulation. They argue that this is necessary not only for the integrity of the primaries but also for the long-term credibility of the party. At this stage, no final decisions have been made, but the signals coming from within the party are being closely analyzed. Every move, every statement, and every alignment is being interpreted as part of a larger strategy. For many Nigerians, the situation represents more than just an internal party issue. It is seen as a test of whether a new political platform can truly operate differently. And as the primaries approach, the pressure continues to build. The pressure is also coming from outside the party, as public interest continues to grow. Many Nigerians, especially younger voters, are paying close attention to how the African Democratic Congress handles this moment. They see it as an early signal of what the party truly represents. If the process is seen as fair, it could strengthen confidence and attract wider support. But if it appears controlled or influenced, it could damage the party's image before the general election even begins. Supporters of Peter Obi are already expressing concern about the direction of events. They argue that his level of acceptance across different parts of the country should naturally reflect in any transparent primary process. At the same time, political analysts note that internal party politics often follows a different pattern. This is where the balance becomes delicate. The party must manage expectations from the public while also handling internal realities. Any gap between these two could create tension. Meanwhile, the position of allies linked to Atiku Abubakar continues to draw attention, especially as discussions around strategy and influence remain active behind the scenes. All of this is happening at a critical time. With the 2027 election cycle approaching, every step taken now is being seen as part of a larger political direction. For the ADC, this moment is not just about choosing a candidate. It is about defining its identity. Attention is now fixed on the final phase, where decisions will move from discussion to action within the African Democratic Congress. This stage is critical. It is where expectations, pressure, and political strategy all come together. And for many observers, it will determine not just the party's candidate, but its credibility going into the 2027 election. At the center of everything is the question of choice. Who will emerge as the presidential flag bearer? This decision is expected to reflect the values the party claims to represent. It will also show whether internal democracy is being upheld or shaped by powerful interests. For supporters of Peter Obi, the expectation is clear. They believe that his popularity, especially among young voters and across different regions, positions him as a strong contender who aligns with the current political mood in the country. They also point to his record, his messaging, and his consistent focus on governance issues as factors that should weigh heavily in a fair selection process. However, the internal dynamics of the party remain complex. There are competing interests, regional considerations, and long-standing political relationships that continue to influence discussions. Within this environment, decisions are rarely straightforward. At the same time, allies connected to Atiku Abubakar are seen as experienced actors within the political space. Their understanding of party structures, negotiation processes, and coalition building gives them a significant presence in the ongoing developments. This creates a situation where two different forms of political strength are interacting. One is driven by public momentum and voter sentiment. The other is shaped by internal structure and political influence. As the process moves forward, the issue of zoning continues to remain a key point of debate. With Bola Ahmed Tinubu, a southerner, currently holding office and potentially seeking a second term, many stakeholders maintain that the presidency should remain within the southern region for now. This position is based on the principle of rotation, which has long been considered important for maintaining balance in Nigeria's political system. Those who support this view argue that allowing the South to complete its turn helps to sustain national unity and reduces regional tension. On the other hand, there are voices within the party who believe that the focus should be on electability and political strength, rather than strict adherence to zoning. They argue that the main goal is to present a candidate who can win the general election, regardless of regional considerations. This difference in perspective is shaping the final stages of decision-making. It is also increasing the level of scrutiny from the public. Many Nigerians are watching closely to see how the party will handle this balance between principle and strategy. The outcome will likely influence how the party is perceived going forward. If the process is seen as transparent and fair, it could strengthen the party's position as a credible alternative. It could also build trust among voters who are looking for a new direction in leadership. However, if the process raises questions about fairness or appears to be influenced by hidden arrangements, it could weaken that trust. This is why the stakes are high. Beyond the internal outcome, the decision will send a message about what the party stands for. It will also shape the broader political landscape ahead of the 2027 elections. At a time when many citizens are expressing dissatisfaction with current conditions, the demand for credible leadership is increasing. People are looking for options that offer both competence and accountability. In this context, the role of the ADC becomes even more significant. It is not just another political platform. It is being viewed by some as a potential turning point. But that potential depends on the choices it makes now. The process of selecting a candidate must reflect the expectations that have been built around the party. It must show that internal democracy is not just a promise, but a practice. As the final decision approaches, different groups within the party continue to position themselves. Alliances are being strengthened, strategies are being adjusted, and discussions are becoming more focused. Every step is being closely observed. For many Nigerians, this moment represents more than a routine political process. It is a test of fairness, a test of integrity, and a test of whether a new political path is truly possible. Whatever the outcome, it will have lasting effects. It will influence voter perception. It will shape party unity. And it will determine how strongly the ADC can compete on the national stage. In the end, the decision will answer a simple but powerful question. Will the party follow its stated principles, or will it follow political convenience? Because the answer to that question will not just define the candidate. It will define the future. As the timeline moves closer to the primaries, the environment within the African Democratic Congress is becoming more intense and more decisive. Key stakeholders are no longer speaking in general terms. Positions are becoming clearer. Alignments are becoming visible. And the room for compromise is getting smaller. At this point, every signal matters. Statements from party leaders, movements of influential figures, and even silence from key actors are all being interpreted as part of a larger calculation. The atmosphere is no longer calm. It is strategic. Supporters of Peter Obi continue to emphasize the importance of reflecting the will of the people. They argue that the energy around his candidacy is not artificial. It is driven by real frustration, real expectations, and a strong desire for change among voters. They believe that ignoring this momentum could come at a cost. Because once public confidence is shaken, it becomes difficult to rebuild. At the same time, those aligned with Atiku Abubakar are focusing on internal strength. Their argument is centered on experience, political structure, and the ability to navigate complex national elections. They see the contest not just as a moment of popularity, but as a long-term political strategy. This difference in approach is now defining the final stage of the process. It is no longer hidden. It is clear. Two directions. Two methods. Two visions of how power should be secured and managed. Meanwhile, the role of Bola Ahmed Tinubu remains an important factor in the broader calculation. As the incumbent president and a Southerner, his potential participation in the next election reinforces the argument that the South is still within its political cycle. This continues to strengthen calls for zoning to be respected. For many observers, any deviation from this expectation could create deeper political tension, not just within the party, but across the wider national space. That is why the decision ahead is being treated with such seriousness. It is not only about internal victory. It is about national perception. If the party is seen as fair, disciplined, and principled, it could gain significant ground ahead of the general election. But if it is seen as divided or influenced by internal power struggles, it could weaken its own position before the real contest begins. As discussions continue, one reality is becoming unavoidable. The outcome of this process will not satisfy everyone, but how it is handled will determine whether the party emerges stronger or more divided. In the coming days, attention will remain fixed on every development. Because in this moment, the ADC is not just choosing a candidate. It is choosing its path forward.